As the Sound Clan leader is getting ready, Yunwoo sees the other trainees covering their ears. Yunwoo realizes that the first test was to endure the music played by the Sound Clan leader. Wamyung told them they need to endure the music for 1 minute to pass the test. Then the clan leader started strumming her instrument, and a huge wave of energy spread inside the academy. Some of the students started to buckle, fall, and faint. The Sound Clan leader suddenly increases the power of his instrument as she gets irritated at seeing Yunwoo handling her power like nothing. Yunwoo wonders why nothing is happening to him. Then Nano suddenly informs him that he stopped his ability to hear sounds because of the low and high frequency waves that can damage his body. The clan leader then looked at Yunwoo with an intimidating gaze. Wamyung sensed that the Sound Clan leader was starting to get impatient because of Yunwoo. Wamyung then wonders how long he will last. Some of the trainees' ears started bleeding, and others fainted due to internal damage. The 6 heirs of the clan wondered and were surprised when they looked back and saw Yunwoo not affected by the power of the clan leader. Yunwoo asked Nano if the people in front were angry. Nano scans their faces and confirms they feel surprised, absurdity, petulance, and anger. Yunwoo thought that if he passed the test without injury, they won't believe him if he says that he doesn't have Nigong. So he asked Nano if he could give him an internal injury, and Nano said yes as his masters ordered. It's almost 1 minute and the sound leader is getting pissed because Yunwoo endures her power. So the clan leader furiously used half of her power to take down Yunwoo. Sensing it's getting dangerous, Wamyung stopped the clan leader. Nano then started giving internal injuries. Yeowoo suddenly vomits blood that confused the heirs and clan leader. Yunwoo scolded Nano for he thought he was dying. As Yunwoo coughs more blood, Wamyung rushes to him and asks if he's okay. Sensing the damage on Yunwoo, Nano immediately activates self-healing. Yunwoo told Nano to wait, but Nano told him that he's in a dangerous condition. Wamyung touched his pulse to check his Nigong, but was surprised when he learned that Yunwoo doesn't have any Nigong. Wamyung was amazed by the sheer will and mental strength of Yunwoo. Then he calls the guard to take Yunwoo to the infirmary. The clan elder was scolded by Wamyung for what she did. Then the Sound Clan elder asks Wamyung if Yunwoo still has a bit of Nigong, but she was surprised when she was told that he doesn't have any. Wamyung told her that he endured the test with just his will. Xiao Meng heard what Wamyung said and took an interest on Yunwoo. Meanwhile, in the infirmary, the doctor is happy to have Yunwoo. He looks at his body and wonders how difficult the first test for him to have those injuries. The doctor asks the guards who brought Yunwoo if he was stabbed. The guards told him that he had internal injuries due to not having any Nigong. Before leaving, one of the guards noticed Yeowoo's complexion is better than before. The doctor then checks his pulse and decided to give Yeowoo acupuncture treatment. Then suddenly something crashed at his back and was a surprise that it was Xiao Meng. Yeowoo was wondering why is the right guardian in the infirmary. Then Xiao Meng asks him why is he pretending to be asleep. Song Meng raised Yeowoo from the bed without touching him, and he tells him that he will slap him if he won't stop pretending. Yeowoo then asks the right guardian how did he know. Xiao Meng then laughs and told Yunwoo that any warrior can easily notice if he was asleep because of his breathing. The right guardian then praised Yeowoo. The doctor then reminded Xiao Meng that Yeowoo needs to be treated. Yeowoo coughs blood again, which made him pale. Then Xiao Meng let go of his Nigong and told Yeowoo that he wants him to be his student. Yeowoo and the doctor were surprised by what he just said. Yeowoo asked the right guardian if he knows who he is. He worries that the 6 clans might get mad if he takes him as his student. Yeowoo still worries that it might be a trap, so Xiao Meng offers him something that he can't say no. The right guardian handed a piece of paper to Yeowoo and asked him if he can pass the test being stuck at the infirmary and without any Nigong. Xiao Meng asked Yeowoo again if he noticed that he is the only one taken to the infirmary, even though there were also students that got injured. Xiao Meng told him that the other students were able to heal themselves. Yeo Woon then asked about the medicine ball and the first floor of the library. The right guardian then said that Hua Myung forgot to tell them that they can only enter the library once they pass a test. He explains that the library has high security. He also tells Yeo Woon that he can only stay on the first floor for 2 hours. Xiao Meng also tell him that they are not allowed to take the books outside, so they have to memorize them as they go. Yeo Woon was excited because Nano can scan a lot of books in 2 hours. Yeo Woon looked at the paper beside him and asked Xiao Meng if it is the breath of Nigong. The right guardian said yes, and if he became his student he will teach the breath of Nigong right away. Yeo Woon then bows to the right guardian, saying that he accepts his offer to be his student. Before Xiao Meng leaves, he told Yeo Woon to memorize the breath of Nigong until he gets back. The doctor then went out to get the acupuncture materials. Meanwhile, in the practice field, the guard rushed to Hua Myung to report the result of the first test. He told him that 415 students passed, including Yeo Woon. Then some of the students were complaining about the test, so they kick out the rebelling trainees. Then Hua Myung looks at Cheon Moo-yoon and Chun Yu-chan, as they were the ones who endured the energy waves without moving. The rumors in the academy that the battle will be contested by the Dark Clan and Blade Clan. Hua Myung smirks as he says to himself that it will be interesting to see that. The students were given bronze tags that represent their ranks. Then the right guardian told them they will now start organizing groups. Back at the infirmary, the doctor tells Yeo Woon that his name is Baek Young Myung, but he can just call him Dr. Baek. Young-woo then asks if his condition is bad. He was shocked when Dr. Baek told him that he needs to stay in the infirmary for 15 days. But Dr. Baek told him not to worry, since he's the apprentice of Dr. Baek Jong-woo. Then Dr. Baek started the acupuncture. Nano activated self-defense mode since he sensed that there was a needle attempting to puncture Yeo Woon's body. Luckily, Yeo Woon managed to stop him. As needle was pinned onto his stomach, Yeo Woon felt relieved as the pain was lessened. Then Nano started retrieving information about the acupuncture diagram. Yeo Woon now asks Nano to heal him, but makes him still like he was wounded. Back at the practice field, Hua Myung now explains the next test. The second will be combat strategies, so they need to familiarize themselves with basic tactics, and they only have 20 days to memorize all of them. Hua Myung tells them that the test requires them to work together. He also tells them that the guards in front of them will be the ones to teach them basic strategies and tactics. One of the heirs, Chun Moo-kyum, asks permission to the guard if he can go to the infirmary and tell Yeo Woon about the second test. He was planning a scheme to kill Yeo Woon, but the guard told him that he will be the one to tell Yeo Woon, because the main building is off limits to cadets except under special circumstances. The guard then went to the infirmary and was shocked that Yeo Woon will have to stay there for 14 days. He wanted to talk to Yeo Woon, but the doctor said that he was sleeping, so guard in Pyong decided to go home and just come back tomorrow. Early morning, Xiao Meng sneaks into the infirmary to meet his student Yeo Woo. He explains to him that he can only train him for 2 weeks and that he could only do it during the morning. He asks Yeo Woon if he managed to memorize the breath no Nigong. Yeo Woon said yes, so Xiao Meng asked him to sit. Xiao Meng sits at the back and Yun Woo that since they don't have much time, he'll just stuff the flow into him. This is the method that was developed by Xiao Meng teacher, Yeo Woon's great-grandfather. Xiao Meng then started and Yeo Woon was shocked. Nano then analyzed the flow and told Yeo Woon that chi or chakra is found in his body. Nano continues to analyze the effects on Yeo Woon's body. Xiao Meng is amazed at Yeo Woon because there's no blockage in his circulation and his muscles looked as if he was training, though he knows he didn't have any kind of martial arts training. Xiao Meng assures now that it will only take him 7 days to acquire Nigong. Meanwhile, at the demonic arts dorm, there was a fight between 2 cadets, Poison Clan heir Chong Jun-sum and top clan cadet Baek Ji-ai. Baek Ji-ai took down the prince and told him that the demonic academy is based only on strength and he will now be the leader of their group. Back at the infirmary, Xiao Meng and Yeo Wu are now finished with the Qi transfer. Xiao Meng told Yeo Wu that he has 7 days to get enough Nigong. Yeo Wu bowed to his teacher and assures him that he will succeed. Then Xiao Meng then leaves. Yeo Wu now is determined to build Nigong in 1 week. At the practiced field, the group starts to gather. Wamiang saw the heirs of the 6 clans become the group leaders except for Group 12, which is being led by Baek Ji-ai. Wamiang saw their bruises and concluded that they must have been in a fight. He was amazed at Baek Ji-ai's challenge and defeat of one of the princes. Then the head instructor arrives to start the training. That night the guard in Pyong told Prince Mu Kyung to tell him that their performance is very satisfactory. Then he also told him that Yeo Wu will have to stay for 2 weeks in the infirmary. Now the prince is pissed. Then Cadet Ja Hyun tried to calm him down. Then he whispered a plan to Prince. Prince Mu Kyung then smirked from what he heard. For days later, guard in Pyong rushed one of his cadets into the infirmary. He told the doctor that he was injured while training with real swords. The doctor asked him immediately to put him down so he could start treating him. After stitching the wound, instructor in Pyong asked the doctor about his condition. The doctor said that he needs to stay in the infirmary for 3 days for him to heal. Then that night the injured cadet stood up from his bed and took a knife from the doctor's tools. He then went to where Yeo Wu is resting and tried to injure his foot so that he won't be able to walk. He's trying to tell Yeo Wu not to blame him and that he was just doing it so that he could survive. When a knife touched Yeo Wu, the cadet was then electrified, which made him unconscious. Then our main character woke up and saw the cadet on the floor, realizing that it's bound to happen. After a while, the cadet woke up with his hand and mouth tied. He asked who did that to him. Then Yeo Wu appeared and said that he was the one who did it and called him Baldy. The cadet is confused. He couldn't understand why did he faint and why Yeo Wu called him Baldy. Then Yeo Wu brought a mirror, which shocked the cadet when he looked and saw his head. The cadet whines and Yeo Wu slapped him. When he got up, Yeo Wu points a knife and asked the cadet who ordered him to assassinate him. The cadet didn't want to talk, so Yeo Wu tied his mouth and took the doctor's needle. The cadet then was scared when he saw Yeo Wu's evil smile. Yeo Wu held his hand and pulled out one of the cadet's fingers and struck the cadet's fingertips with the needle. The cadet cried in pain. Since he doesn't want to talk, Yeo Wu just took it out of revenge. When the cadet couldn't take it anymore, he waved his head and Yeo Wu removed the tie from his mouth. Yeo Wu then asked the cadet if it was Cheon Mukum who ordered him. The cadet was shocked and asked our main character how did he know. He also told him that he knows what group he belongs to and knows everyone in the group. Then Yeo Wu called him Cadet 23 Hyo Bon. Hyo Bon then realizes that Yeo Wu is a monster and that he was just hiding his strength. Yeo Wu pressed the Geum pressure point of Ho Bon. Before Ho Bon faints, he realized that Yeo Wu is fooling everyone. That morning when Xiao Meng arrived and was greeted by Yeo Wu, Xiao Meng asked Yeo Wu where he put the black dragon ball he gave and was asked to bring it to him. The right guardian then asked his student to consume the black dragon ball. Yeo Wu is a bit hesitant because of the smell. He asked if he needs to swallow it, but Xiao Meng told him to chew before swallowing because that will make it more effective. After taking the medicine, Xiao Meng helps Yeo Wu to absorb the black dragon ball. Nano then analyzes the medicine and asks if Yeo Wu wants to accept the absorption. Xiao Meng was amazed when he saw his student's body. He said that he has a body of a war god. But what amazes him most is the fact that Yeo Wu did not just absorb the medicine, he also amplified the effects. When Yeo Wu finished absorbing the medicine, Xiao Meng told him that he got 30 years worth of Nigong. Yeo Wu bowed to say his thanks to his teacher and Nano. Before Xiao Meng leave, Yeo Wu asked him if he could teach him his blade skill. His teacher then replied, "Of course, he can." In the next 2 days, we can see Prince Mu Kyung beating Hyo Bon for failing his mission to take out Yeo Wu. Then the prince took the bandana of Hyo Bong and was surprised that he was bald. Then he beats him again, saying that he won't forgive him even if he shaved his head. Back to our main character, Xiao Meng started teaching him his techniques and compliments Yeo Woon for being a genius. Thanks to nanoscanning, Yeo Woon can reenact every move his teacher showed him. Xiao Meng stopped and praised Yeo Woon, then handed over a piece of paper. He told him that it is the formation of the butterfly dance and its Nigong operation. Then his teacher showed him his sword named Wild Dance and told Yeo Woon to watch closely, for he will perform the butterfly dance technique. Yeo Woon then told Nano to prepare to scan. Then we see our main character sleeping while Nano is adjusting his muscles and veins for the butterfly dance technique. 1 hour later, Yeo Woon wakes up and felt a change in his strength. He now then tells the doctor that he's ready to be discharged. Yeo Woon went immediately to the practice field with his group. They started the basic tactic and strategy training. The instructor was amazed because he could follow and keep up with the group even though it was sent to the infirmary. Prince Mukiam is annoyed that Yeo Woon is doing well. So he talked to one of his group mates through telepathy and asked to do something for him. Then the guy went to the back of Yeo Woon and tried to kick him, but then he saw Yeo Woon looking at him. He tried to use his Nigong but was pushed back and wonders why Yeo Woon has a stronger Nigong than him. Prince Mukiam now is full of rage toward Yeo Woon. After the training, Yeo Woon is heading to his group's assigned room. While walking, he was stopped by Prince Mukiam. Then the Spring Clan heir Mukiam tried to insult Yeo Woon in front of other cadets. Mukiam called Yeo Woon peasant blood. Then Yeo Woon asked him if he was insulting the cult lord. Then the people around started gossiping. Failure to insult Yeo Woon, Mukiam attacked our main character. But Yeo Woon countered him before he could land his punch. Prince Mukiam got angry and used the Spring Clan's fist technique. But the people were shocked. Yeo Woon evaded it with the weightlessness technique. Yeo Woon ran away but was chased by Prince Mukiam and other cadets. Then Yeo Woon stops and suddenly attacks Prince Mukiam. Thank you. Please like and subscribe.